Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. I'm Elisabetta, an Italian watercolor artist with a passion for art supplies. You remember one of the last videos I swatched all the different violet or purple watercolors that I have. Of course there are more than that, but I found out that I already have quite a few. I have cobalt violet, ultramarine violet, manganese, quinacridone and so on. You can watch this video, I will put the link in the info box. Today I'm swatching and comparing all my ultramarine violet paint, PV15. PV15 can also be treated as ultramarine pink, but that will be the object of another video, otherwise it would have been too long, this one. So today I'm swatching and comparing all my ultramarine violet, which is a very lovely color. It's very light fast with a very small drying shift, whereas dioxazine violet, which is the most common blue violet that you find in any watercolor set, called also permanent violet, has a very big drying shift. Ultramarine violet also has a very slight granulation, which I personally like very much, and is a blue violet. I know that there are differences across brands, but that is something that you only realize when you swatch them side by side. Let's start right now. So why is it called this violet ultramarine? Well, I wet the paper for my Winsor & Newton version. You know that I very often start with Winsor & Newton, that I find my benchmark, and it very rarely disappoints me. From what I have understood, ultramarine violet is ultramarine blue that is baked for many hours. So from what I understood, once again, it is ultramarine blue, PV29, which is baked for many hours. And then there is some salt added. A different mineral is added when you want a red shade. And it's lovely. It's really beautiful. Very granulating. I have pre-wetted the paper because I wanted to see the granulation. And this is Winsor & Newton, very rarely disappointing. Now, Daniel Smith. The last thing I would like to say is that the Daniel Smith website says that it can be the blue violet in a muted palette, which is a good idea. I really love muted colors, and can also be used for shadows, for violet shading in portraits. So now I'm gathering information to set up my portrait palette, because I really love painting portraits. This is more saturated, I have the impression, than the Winsor & Newton. And it's maybe slightly darker, but of course we need to wait until they dry. Very saturated. Now it's Rembrandt turn with the roll PV15, except for Schminke, and we will talk about that later. And handprint says there is a very large difference across brands. I don't see such a big difference. Rembrandt is my go-to brand. I say in every video, because I think it's top-notch quality. Not sure you can use this term, top-notch. I hope so. It's top-notch quality and at a reasonable price, but it's great artist quality. this violet really needs, you need very little paint because it's very pigmented. Other news is that it's very light fast and semi-transparent. I like this very much. Now Maimeriblu, my Italian brand, Ultramarine Violet, and Maimeriblu also very rarely disappoints me. It's slightly harder in the tube. Let me, I'm afraid I might do something horrible now. Hopefully not. And this is somehow maybe weaker. No, it's just harder. Let me put some pigment here. It has hardened in the tube, unfortunately. But once you put this in a pan, as I always do, or in a palette to dry, that would be the same. There is a certain streakiness, but I would say that the hue is really very similar to the previous ones. Very similar. I don't know, there is a, it's a blue violet, but there is, I see like a, I'm not sure if it is the light in my home from the window, slightly rosy undertone. It's very beautiful in any case. Now it's core. With core, I have mixed feeling core. They're all new. You know, I devote a share of my watercolor earnings to buying supplies and exploring. My watercolor earnings being from Skillshare. I'm a Skillshare teacher, and this month went particularly well, so I had a good budget to invest. This is slightly warmer, I have this feeling, but once again we need to wait until it dries. Lovely granulation. I don't see a big difference between among all these brands, but this to me looks slightly warmer, and I keep seeing this this slightly rosy undertone, and this was core. Then we have Rowney Artist Grade. This is a brand that you don't find in Italy. You only find Aquafine, the student grade, but this was sent to me, I think, by Anita, my friend, because there was a sale, and she was so kind. She bought all this paint for me. And you know that Rowney belongs to Fila, which is the group that owns Lucas and Maimeriblu. This is different, actually. This is slightly different. It's interesting. It's less saturated, apparently. I don't know if you can hear the wind. There's almost a tornado today. Wind is blowing so strongly today. I was walking the dogs at the park this morning. I was kind of scared that the branch could fall on my head from a tree, and also for them, because they are absolutely careless of danger. They have no idea. Yeah, this is slightly, I think, less pigmented, but this is a brand that I wanted to try for so long. I would like to add, let me see if I can, this is Artist Grade Rowney. So I think that they don't market these in Italy because they have Maimeriblu from the same group, which is so strong, and also have Lucas. So maybe they don't want to compete against themselves. So okay, I added more. This is also slightly warmer, I think. Now I start seeing the differences now that they are drying. And now we have Sennelier, which calls it violet blue, bleu violet, but it is PV15. It's very transparent, I would say. Small binder issue, but very small, just on top some binder. That happens with Sennelier, but I love this brand so much. You know, because Sennelier is made with honey, like M-gram. The feeling that you have when you lay paint on paper is fantastic. Just so soft. I could paint for hours with Sennelier. I need to make a Sennelier palette. One of my next videos, I will put all my Sennelier in a palette. Okay. Once again, still not a big difference between Sennelier, among Sennelier and the previous ones. And this is Old Holland. This is cooler. This is slightly different, slightly more pastel. Very lovely granulation, this one. This is slightly more pastel, bluer, but it's lovely. As usual, I'm in love with each single product that I swatch. This is a problem. This is a big problem. Now I have this Belgian brand. Old Holland was obviously Dutch, but Blockx is a almost artisanal Belgian brand, and this is incredible. This is just PV15, I think. Yes, it's just PV15, but I would say that there's some PB29 in it, because I can tell it's much bluer and darker than, it's completely different from the other ones. I would say that's it's more clearer, the PB29 origin. I need to put more. It's completely different. It's definitely bluer. It's a blue. It's a blue, leaning towards violet, but it's a blue. Okay, Blockx is, you know, almost a handmade pigment. This is Ultramarine Violet by Allison Seaboard, but I have it in a pan actually. Yes, I have it. I didn't want to open it. I have this in my SAA collection that my friend Anita from Scotland sent to me in an incredible, generous manner. And I remember this was so incredibly granulating, and this is so beautiful. This is different. This is absolutely more pinkish than the previous ones. So intensely granulating. This Allison Seaboard collection is wonderful. Now she's coming out with new colors, and I'm so curious because I have the tube as well, but it's closed. It's still Anita that sent it to me, but I don't want to open it. I still have the color in my pan. It re-wets incredibly easily. And yes, it's definitely more pinkish, and it's wonderful. And then I have from this lovely set by Schminke, I have this version, and it is PV15 plus PB29. So it reminds me a little of the Blockx one, but it's even stronger, the presence of PB29. It's almost overwhelming, but it's Ultramarine Violet. So it's PV15 plus PV29. It's less granulating, I would say. And we let them dry. We let this dry now. When the colors dry, I will try a portrait and use this Ultramarine Violet. It's the main color. Let's see. I have sketched with pencil. I will try slightly. It's my usual way to make portraits. And I will speed this up.
Camera was off. I have added some body because she had a flying neck, so I added the body, and I think this shading with this violet works very well for portraits because it's very delicate, it's slightly granulating, it gives texture. I also used it for the background and I really like the way it came out. I used the reference image that I found on Unsplash, and this is a very difficult paper to work with. It's Artisa. It's a paper that I use in my daily sketch because I paint a lot and I don't want to paint on cotton paper every day because it's too expensive. So I I prefer to sketch on cellulose, and I still like the result. You know, you get a lot of hard edges on this paper, that's the problem, but I know it, and now I have learned how to manage. So I really love the way this Ultramarine Violet works on portrait. I am setting up my portrait palette, and I will absolutely include this Ultramarine Violet. I really love it. Okay, let's go back to our colors. Right, now all my colors are dry, and yes, now that they're dry, there are some differences. Some of them have definitely a rose undertone, namely Daniel Smith, Daler Rowney, Allison Seaboard, whereas others are more bluish, like Core, Winsor and Newton, Maimeriblu, definitely Rembrandt. Sennelier is beautiful. They're all slightly granulating, but some of them granulate more than others. I would say that Daler Rowney is beautiful. I'm so happy. This is the first time I own Daler Rowney, and this is so beautiful. It's so granulating. It has almost a color separation between blue and pink. I don't know, it's beautiful. Same with Winsor and Newton. Winsor and Newton is beautiful. Daniel Smith has a, I don't know, it has a texture to it almost. It almost has a texture to it, and it's very beautiful. Rembrandt is less granulating, I would say. Still a beautiful color, but I would love to see a stronger granulation. Maimeriblu, I don't see that strong of a granulation. Same for Core. Core, as usual, has a nice dispersion, but all of them have a nice dispersion. It's pigment that disperses very well on paper. Daler Rowney, beautiful. The Sennelier is really nice. It's a bit muted. It's more muted than the others, but I really like it. Or the Holland. Or the Holland is a brand that it's you either love it or hate it. I love it, definitely. This Ultramarine Violet is very delicate, very nice. This Allison Seaboard is very strongly granulating, SAA, very nice. And then we have these two Blockx and Schminke. They are completely apart. They are almost ultramarine blue with a red shade. So, as usual, what can I tell you? Just, it's a color that I would definitely include in a palette. It's very, very nice for a delicate shading on portraits. I like how this portrait came out. It was very quick as usual because I don't have time when I record a video to stay hours on a portrait, on a drawing, because otherwise it would be too long to edit. So it's always quick sketches, but I think it's pretty. I think that I would definitely include this in my watercolor palette for portrait, soon to be released on YouTube. And this Allison Seaboard worked wonderfully because this is the one I used. So as I was saying to you, sorry, I got lost. Just include, my recommendation is to include this Ultramarine Violet in your palette, especially if you work on portrait or landscapes, because I'm sure this is lovely in sky. And just buy what is cheaper, what is on sale, what you find in a store next to you. Just, they're all very beautiful. I would say that I'm not crazy for Blockx or Schminke versions. It's not what I was looking for. They're not ugly, but they're not what I was looking for. So this Ultramarine Violet, Schminke and Blockx, they are more some ultramarine blue. For me, it's a warmer shade of ultramarine blue. But the other ones, just grab one, what you find, and you will be happy. I like the most granulating versions, but that's very personal. Thanks a lot for having watched this with me, and I'll see you soon on my channel. This is Elisabetta. I will be very happy if you give me a thumb up, or maybe you can subscribe to my channel and you won't lose and you won't miss my next videos. Ciao, ciao. See you soon. Ciao, ciao.